and that is to go first through the resident or applicant's at a glance page, simply by clicking on the name here. The reason why we suggest this is it's still extremely important for you guys to do your due diligence. Double check the information that is entered into OneSite because we've automated your documents to read OneSite. So they can only be as smart as what is located here within their page. So if there's information missing, then when we generate our documents, it's not going to have anything to pull from, so the information on the documents will be missing. If the information is incorrect, then the information that it pulls from was incorrect, thus your documents will be incorrect. So this is a crucial point in ensuring that our information pulls over seamlessly. So during this due diligence, it only takes a few moments. Double check your lease start date, your lease end date. Make sure that truly does match what the application says or what the quote says. Double check your contacts. Make sure that everybody was given the appropriate relationship, and make sure they were given the appropriate signer role as well, i.e. a lease signer, an occupant, a minor, because that does play into who will be able to sign your documents once that comes time. Double check your future charges. This is probably the most important area to check in regards to a move-in and renewal packet. Always check the charges. Make sure that any monthly charges that this resident will have is listed here in scheduled billing. If it's missing, then it may be missing in your document depending on how the setup was done. So if it's pet rent, if it's a concession, if it's a rentable item, anything in addition to rent, make sure it is listed here in scheduled billing. Even if it's a one-time fee, meaning maybe a one-time pet fee, a one-time concessions, those also need to be listed here in scheduled billing, and they need to be charged as a daily fee, and the start date and end date must match the lease start date. That is how the system recognizes this charge as a truly one-time charge, and that is how your document will be able to successfully read it as well. Once you've verified your scheduled billing, go to your miscellaneous tab. Make sure that any vehicles have been inputted if they've provided you that information, and make sure that any pets have been inputted if they do have a pet. A lot of times inside your packet, your pet addendums may have what we call a pet constraint, which means that particular addendum is looking for something here within OneSite to tell it whether or not it's needed given the household. So if the person has a pet, but we just did not list it here, then the household basically looks as if it does not have a pet, and the packet thinks that pet addendum is not needed, and it hides it from you. If it sees a pet listed here, then a pet addendum will be present inside your packet because it knows the household will need to sign agreeing to this pet that's listed. So always ensure that you take the time to do your due diligence. Once you've verified the information, everything looks as up to date to you as it possibly can, then you can go ahead and access your packet by going through what we call your move-in wizard over here to the left side of the screen. You're going to hear a lot of people in RealPage refer to these action items over here to the left as wizards. That is because each one of these take you through certain checklists or steps to complete an overall action in OneSite. So think of it like an installation wizard anytime you want to install something to your computer. It will walk you through the setup steps that need to happen in order to complete that installation. Same thing applies here. So when we click on your move-in wizard, it opens up your move-in checklist. Now you guys may already be familiar with a few different columns listed here, one of which is called Required Task. If you guys see this, then you understand that anything listed here has to have a green checkbox out beside it in order for your move-in button to become enabled, and so that you can move this person in when it comes time. You may also be familiar with a column called Additional Tasks. This column is basically things that are recommended be completed prior to moving this person in, but would not hinder you from moving them in had you missed one or two. But now with your custom package, you're also going to have an additional column called Documents. Your Documents column is an extension of your required tasks. You do have to have a green checkbox out beside your documents here in order for your Move In button to become enabled and in order to move this person in. So we're going to click on that packet now that we've done all of our due diligence so that we can go ahead and generate our lease paperwork. When we open up this packet, or this residence file folder, so to speak, we can see a lot of information at once, but probably the most alarming are these red X's. These red X's are in correlation to our required documents that we saw on our Today page in our snapshot. It showed us that we had 10 required documents that would need to be completed to move this packet from pending packet status to completed packet status, and these are the red X's. We can also see that we have different types of requirements. We can see some that list form out beside it and some that do not. Those that list form are the pieces of information that we would typically generate on our side, normally in reference to your lease paperwork and lease addendums. So we can see that we have some documents that are Blue Moon lease agreements or lease addendums if you are using your Blue Moon product. And we see some that are what we call custom forms. So if you do not use Blue Moon and you use your own company-specific documents, then yours may be presented as leases. But all of them will be referred to as a form inside your packet. Those that are missing form out beside it are what we call your placeholders. Placeholders is basically your storage space for anything that you would collect from your applicant or your resident to complete your process. So example, for a move-in, you may request proof of income or proof of renter's insurance to meet all of your qualification purposes to be able to move this person in. And normally, once you collected those pieces of information, you would store it inside that paper file folder in your office and file it away somewhere. Well, we're trying to get away from that paper file folder or that dependency to that paper file folder. So instead, you now have electronic storage space to be able to itemize and store those pieces of information still efficiently and centrally located within one site. I personally always like to start with forms. Anytime you have to put something in the resident's hands for them to review and sign, it typically takes a little bit longer. They're not as time sensitive as we are. So let's go ahead and get that in their hands as soon as possible so that they can start reviewing those. And in the meantime, we can ask to collect those other pieces of information as we go along. You can do either or in whatever order works best for you, but I personally like to start with forms. To do so, we're going to go into the middle of the page and I'm going to click Generate Forms. When I do that, OneSite will automatically place inside this list each and every form that is present inside this current packet. Not only that, but OneSite recognizes any form that is currently marked as a requirement. And if so, it will default it as ready to generate. So your system is doing as much possible work as it can for you. Now, these are still text enabled, so if for some reason you wanted to go against best practice or go against what the system knows needs to happen, you can select what you want to generate at this time. Just understand that all documents that are required, meaning they have that red X, will need to be generated prior to moving this person in. So I'm going to allow the system to do what it knows it needs to and generate all required documents. I'm going to click the Generate button down here at the very bottom of the window. And in just a moment, another window is going to appear. This is for your user-defined merge fields. What this means is that these are the manual questions we have to ask because there are certain pieces of information that we cannot take from OneSite, either because it is not currently stored within OneSite, we do not collect that information in OneSite, or because the information is so sensitive that it's best done manually answered. An example of that may be concessions. Concessions can be entered in a million different ways, and each manager has their own way of doing so. But when automating a document, you have to be very strict in the way that you tell people to code or enter a concession. And you can cause different error messages if you have someone that cannot break that habit. So to prevent error messages, we may make it a user-defined field so that you can still get the same information on the documents without breaking any habits, and they can still enter in the concessions as they feel comfortable in OneSite. So here we have some user-defined or manual entry points. So we have, is the unit furnished? Have they decided to investigate their apartment before or after? Have they ever had bed bugs? If so, tell me when. Is the pet housebroken? So in this instance, this is information that we just don't store within OneSite, so we have nothing to pull it from or automate it to. So these change household by household, so they need to be answered. But you can see here that prior to me doing anything, most of my answers have been filled out for me. And that's because the system is recognizing the common choice answer given the question for you. Again, doing as much work as it can on its own. So what I mean by that is in the example of unit furnished or unfurnished, the most common answer to this question is the unit is unfurnished. 90% of properties only have a handful that may be furnished for a corporate unit. So it defaults it to that common value for you. So 90% of the time, you're never having to change that answer, but instead just reviewing to ensure that's true and hitting save. But in the event that you do need to change a user-defined that is currently answered for you, all you need to do is click on the value and select the other option. That will mark the appropriate area on your document once generated. If the value is just left open, this means it is text enabled and you will need to type in your answer, if any. Once you've answered any of your user-defined, you'll go ahead and hit save at the bottom of the window. Now, depending on your internet speed or the size of your packet, this may take a few moments for the documents to fully generate. And here in just a moment, it's actually going to jump us right back into our packet. Now we can see a lot of different notes now in our notes column here, which was previously blank prior to us generating our forms. And each one of these notes tell us something different. So we can see the very first note is data received from Blue Moon form generated. These are for those that use Blue Moon addendums or lease agreements. This is the desired message. I call it the long message because it takes up the entire notes column. And ideally, we would want that for all of our forms, whether it be custom forms or Blue Moon forms. We always want the long message. When we go down, we can see we have two much shorter messages. One says form queued, which is what it means for a custom form that is still thinking. It has not fully pulled in all the needed information. And we have another short message called data sent to Blue Moon, which is the same thing. It means that a document has not fully generated. It has not pulled all the needed information from Blue Moon in the instance that you are using Blue Moon documents. Either way, short messages are always bad. Long messages are always good. So in this instance, we're going to hit refresh contents until we get that long message for each and every form that we generated. That may take a few moments as well, depending on the size of your packet or your internet speed. So now we can see that all of those that are listed as form that we generated now have a long message. That long message takes up the entire notes column. That's exactly what we want to see. That means that the document has fully generated, has pulled all the needed information, and is ready for us to view. The next best step is to go ahead and click Print View. Now this is very crucial, especially during the next 30 days if you've just gone live with your custom packets, as you normally have 30 days with your implementation consultant to fine-tune anything that could be wrong with your packets. We are not perfect on our side, and technology is not perfect. Your eyes are what we need to ensure that everything is generating as it should, as you guys know it better as you do it every single day. Not only that, but we always want to put our best foot forward anytime we put documents or legal binding contracts in our residents' hands. So we always need to ensure the information is good to go before sending anything to a resident for them to review. So always click Print, Print, View. This will not automatically send it to your printer, but it will open up a PDF version of what it is that you've just generated for you to review. Take your time. You'll know the areas that you will get comfortable in examining and making sure is correct. Once you've ensured that all the information is good, you can go ahead and close out. Now at this time, you are able to go ahead and collect signatures from your residents or applicants in regards to their lease paperwork that you just generated. With your custom package, you are able to collect two types of signatures. You are still going to have those people in your community that absolutely hate everything electronic. They do not like any emails, they don't like computers, none of that. And for those people, you will always have the ability to collect that pen and paper signature. Here in OneSite, that pen and paper signature is referred to as an OFSA option. That stands for On File Signature Authorization. But also with your custom package, you will now have the ability to collect an electronic signature using DocuSign. But it is important to know which way you are wanting your applicants or residents to sign these documents within your packet prior to choosing a signature choice out of those two options. Reason being is once you choose a signature style, the other option's actually taken away from us inside this packet and forces everybody in the household to sign in the same signature style that was first signed before. So what we mean by that, if we have two applicants, a husband and wife, and the wife signs electronically, that now means that the husband must sign electronically and the office must countersign electronically. And vice versa, if that first person signs pen and paper, now everybody, including the office, must sign pen and paper. You cannot have mixed signature styles within a packet, simply because the other option will disappear once you choose which signature style you prefer. So Tom has reached out to us. I know that he has email. He's very tech savvy, so I'm going to go ahead and send his packet electronically using DocuSign. Because I know which signing manner I want to proceed with, I can go ahead and access my packet and click Sign Documents. When I do that, both signature options will be presented to me. Again, you have your DocuSign, which is your electronic signature, and you have your OFSA, which stands for your pen and paper signatures. Once I hit Sign, choosing DocuSign, the OFSA will no longer be present for me to choose from inside this particular packet. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed and hit Sign. That takes me to a DocuSign Household Signatures page. Anybody listed here has been given the lease signer responsibility in OneSite. You can typically tell because they have an S out beside their name here in contacts. And they've been given the appropriate relationship status as well. DocuSign best works with two different relationship statuses. One will always be the head of household, as you always have to have a head of household in OneSite, typically the first person to apply. And the other is an adult co-head of household. So they need to have one of those two relationship statuses in order for DocuSign to register this person as someone needing to sign the lease documents. So if you have a husband and wife, and the wife is the head of household, then it is best to make the husband the adult co-head of household, not spouse. If you have two roommates, one is the head of household, the other should also be the adult co-head of household, not roommate. So standardize your status process and making sure that they do fit within those two relationship statuses when possible. I can see I only have one signer in this example, and that is Tom. He has been marked as a lease signer, and he has been marked as the head of household, so he meets both criteria and does appear here within my list to send for electronic signature. Not only that, but here in the email section, if Tom had provided us an email during his leasing process, that would have pulled over based on what he had in his contacts. I can see he did not have an email listed, and I can see this area is text enabled. So even if his email had come over, if there was a misspelling, or if he wanted to use an alternative email, I would be able to adjust that here within this window. Once adjusted and I hit close, whatever email I have listed here will actually update for Tom under contacts. So I'm going to go ahead and type in an email. And we can also see we have the cell phone number that pulls over. Now, the most common action that you guys will use here within this window is the send email functionality for your residents. This will send the packet directly to their email for them to quickly access DocuSign and sign all the documents that are needed. But it is very important that if you want to use this functionality, that each and every person listed here does have their own unique email address. So again, if you have that husband and wife situation, and the husband is the head of household and uses his email, and the wife uses his email as well, then when we hit send email, it's actually going to give us an error message. It's going to say, sorry, but we need unique email addresses in order to verify that this person truly is who they say they are. Typically a pretty easy thing to solve nowadays. Most people have about 5 or 6 emails on average, so simply call one of the people and ask for an alternative email. If they don't have one, call the other and ask for an alternative email. But if they still don't have one and you do want to collect that electronic signature, there is a workaround. You can see we do have a secondary option called Sign Now. It is very rarely used, but it is nice to know that it is there for you in the event that you need it. So if we do have duplicate addresses, email addresses I mean, and we want to still collect that electronic signature and there truly is no other alternative email, then we can go ahead and type none@none.com and proceed with sending one packet via the email, and then the other can be signed electronically in person on day of move-in using your Sign Now option. What this is, and why it's pretty rarely used, is because this is your option for those that are wanting to use your computer signed into your OneSite account to sign their documents. In order for OneSite to allow that to happen, OneSite needs to have an authorization code, basically stating this person truly is who they say they are, and no one is trying to falsify any records. Well, the manner in which OneSite sends that authorization code is pretty repetitive in the way that you could just hit send email and sign directly there, if the alternative emails were provided. So one of those is Resident Portal. Well, if the resident has access to their resident portal, then they can sign their documents directly through that portal account, or that typically means they have access to internet, and if they have an alternative email, they can just sign directly using the send email functionality. Send code via email. Well, that's a little bit redundant. Instead of getting a code and going here and plugging that in and signing there, why not just cut out the middleman and sign directly via email using your send email functionality? But if you were to ever use this option, it would probably be for your third option down here, which is the sign now via text message. So in the event that someone did not have a data plan or a smartphone, they could still receive a text message code. They could provide you that text message code, hit provide, type that in, and that would give them access to DocuSign within your OneSite account for them to sign with you in person. So again, very rarely used. You may use it once a year, but it's nice to know that it's there and what it is there for and how to use it. So in our example today, I'm going to just use the send email functionality, which is how you guys will use it most often. Now, if I did have multiple names here, we do know that they do need unique email addresses, but also you only have to hit the send email to one of these. Doesn't matter who's listed, you just have to hit send email to one of them, and it will systematically send the packet to everybody listed here. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit the send email. As I only have one person, it's Tom, so it's going to send it to Tom. Once it's sent, I'm going to get a success message, and it will basically state your email has been successfully sent. Now, when I click OK and I close out, I want you to pay attention. Right now in the background of the packet, we can see OFSA still listed out beside each and every one of our documents inside my packet. That's important because it does give us a telltale sign as to whether or not we've sent this via DocuSign. What I mean by that is when I click OK off of the success message, is it takes me right back to this household signatures page. There is nothing here that is grayed out to tell me that I've already sent this. There's nothing here to say, hey, you did your job, close out. Nothing. And you guys on site live crazy lives, and your time is basically dedicated to whatever the resident needs it to be. So you hit OK off that success message and you get to the screen, and then immediately a resident comes storming into your office, doesn't care that your door was closed because you were obviously busy, and wants to talk to you about why they were late paying rent, why it's all your fault, as always, and giving you a list of demands as to what they need to happen to pay their rent, and they're not going to pay rent next month, and so on and so forth, and they just go on and on and on for about an hour. Well, that takes up a lot of your attention. You come back to the screen after that resident leaves your office. Again, nothing here to tell you you've sent this, so you freak out a little bit and you're like, oh no, I need to send this, so we hit send email again. It will truly send it again, giving you another success message. You close out, the resident comes back into your office. He is not done. He wants to go into more detail as to why you're just ruining his life because you have to run a property. It's never ending with you guys. So what happens each and every time we get distracted on site and we hit that send email button is it truly sends another packet to the resident or to the applicant, and it will void out the previous packet that was sent or even error it out if they're in the middle of signing it. So if you don't know if you've sent this, all you need to do is hit close off this window. If you do not see OFSA, but instead you see status out beside these forms, that is your indication that this has been sent via DocuSign and you are just pending signatures at this time. So a really, really nice tip or trick to know. The status button is actually very cool too. It has a lot of different information that you can get from it. So if you have multiple lease signers that you sent this packet to and you're trying to figure out who has signed, who still needs to sign, then by clicking on the status button, you are able to find that out. In the status button, you are able to see who it has been sent to. Once that person has actually opened their email, it will show delivered out beside their name. Once they've actually signed their packet, it will show completed out beside their name. And you can keep tabs of that on anybody that has been sent this packet from that one status button. Now we will go over different areas that you can be trained in monitoring when everybody has signed in bulk. And you'll definitely go over that here in just a moment. But in case you needed to know it, who hasn't in this instance, you can use your status button. So we're going to say that we generated this and sent it at 5 o'clock and we're off the next day. And we need to make sure that our applicant is being followed up with in our absence, because let's say we're off for a week. So we ask our coworker, hey, I really don't want them to feel like we've just ignored them while I'm off. Can you please follow up with them? I would really appreciate it. And of course, the coworker agrees. So the coworker comes in the next morning, you're not there, you're in Mexico having a margarita, doesn't want to be bothered. What are they going to see on their Today page without knowing anything about this person? Again, just from your Today page, you get all the needed information at a glance. So they are able to see again the unit number, the name, the packet itself, how many days we have to complete this packet, how many red X's are inside this packet. But before, where we had 4 zeros, we now only have 2 remaining zeros. So what has changed? Under required documents generated, where it was previously 0, we can see 8. So I know that my coworker has at least generated 8 of the 10 required documents, which is a great start. And I can see those 8 required documents still don't have green checkboxes, so all I need to really know is, has this been sent via DocuSign for them to sign electronically, or is it still pending a signature choice? I, as the coworker, can quickly gain that information simply by clicking on the packet itself. And again, if I see status out beside the forms instead of OFSA, that's my indication that she sent this for DocuSign before she left, and I'm just waiting for the residents to sign at this point. So I can close out and go about my day, knowing that my coworker has been followed up with, and so has their applicant. So what is the residents going to see on their side? They are going to get an email from DocuSign and only from DocuSign. It is very important to notate that they will never get an email from your community email or your personal email. But even with DocuSign, there are numerous benefits you can express to your residents or applicants that are concerned. DocuSign has many security features that are in play for their product. One of which is you can see I'm truly not even in the email itself, but simply in a preview window of that email. I know that it's asking me to open an attachment, but in this day and age where emails can carry multiple viruses or malware, anybody can be a little nervous opening an attachment. But just in the preview window, I can clearly see my name and I can see exactly what it's asking me to access. So if I'm Tom and I know that I've recently leased an apartment with you guys, I should be expecting lease paperwork that looks just like this, and I would know the days that I leased it for. So I can feel very comfortable and confident proceeding with opening this attachment. If I'm Tom and I've been a homeowner and have been for 12 years, well, this looks really fishy. I don't know anything about this. I can delete the email without never having accessed the documents or exposing myself to what may have been within them. Also, you can always tell your applicants that they can hover over the actual attachment link. When they do that, it will show them the true destination that it's going to send them to. And the very first thing you can see is Safe Links Protection. And down below it, you can see DocuSign.net. You can see that the website is actually spelled correctly. Most that are, if not all that are, fake emails that are leading you to a false destination, you'll be able to tell by reading the destination link. You'll also be able to tell because most commonly they'll have misspellings for the main name, so DocuSign would be spelled incorrectly. So I can feel comfortable and confident proceeding by clicking on Review Documents. That will launch me into the DocuSign program. At the very top of the page, I can see that DocuSign is a secured window, and I can see my packet, but I can't access my packet. And that's because everybody must first agree to the electronic records and signatures disclosure here at the very top of the page. This creates a certificate to back up the authenticity of your electronic signatures that are collected throughout this process. And those are actually going to be stored inside your packet automatically for you. Now, if they're like some of our residents that think that they are lawyers and they want to argue everything, they can actually click on the disclosure and read it word for word. But if they're like most of our residents, they're just going to push a bunch of buttons until it's done. So they're just going to hit that OK, and they're going to hit continue. When they do that, they will be able to access their document in its entirety. So they can take as much time reading it as thoroughly as possible, or they can be like most of our residents that just are going to start hitting buttons. Either way works. Whenever they hit that first button, it is going to take them immediately down to whatever first initial or first signature is present within the packet. I can see this first one is an initial. When I click on that initial, it will assign a general initial to me. If I'm not happy with that, I can change that style to something I feel best suits me, or I can even draw whatever initial I feel is super duper me. So whatever they put here is still legal binding, does not matter what it is. So I'm saying this is my initial and I'm going to adopt it, which means it's going to carry that same initial throughout any other document that requires an initial in this packet. The next one it stops me at is a full signature. A signature is different than an initial, so it's going to have you do the same process. So I'm now going to draw my signature. Again, whatever they put legal binding. You can see it down here. They are agreeing that this is their signature and that this is a legal binding signature. Now you can see it just starts throwing you down throughout the page to any signatures that are required. And your residents or applicants cannot miss a signature. So let's say they don't see this area here. So if they get caught up, they don't see it, they continue on down throughout their document. What's going to happen is when we get down to the very bottom of the page, it's going to immediately shoot them up to the missing signature that they did not see. You can see that happened actually quite quickly. Let's see that they didn't see that still. They know that there's a missing signature, but they just don't know where. Just by there being a button on the left that is clickable or accessible is an indication that there is a missing signature. And if they were to click on that at any time, it will take them to that missing signature. Let's say they just don't agree. They're like, I am not signing that one document, and they try to hit finish. It's now going to highlight it in red. They cannot finish a packet unless they sign all required documents indicated during your original setup. So I'm going to go ahead and finally sign that last signature. I can see the button on the left has now disappeared, and when I click finish, it's actually going to allow me to do so. Once that happens, you're going to see you're done in a big blue screen. Once your residents or applicants have gotten this blue screen, that's all they need to see. They do not need to sign up for DocuSign. They do not need to create any DocuSign account. This is it. So they can simply close out of the screen and proceed about their day. So we're going to say that they signed that, just hanging out in the middle of the night on their couch, eating some Ben & Jerry's ice cream because they don't have to be up early in the morning, but we have to be up early in the morning to make sure that their packets are good to go and that we're ready for their move-in. So we come in the next day, we open up our Today page, and what are we going to see? So before where we had 2 remaining zeros, we now only have 1. And the document that changed, or the column that changed, is the required documents ready for countersignature. It was 0, and now it shows 7. So you guys listening that are managers, or that will need to be able to countersign your leases or have that ability right now, listen up. This is the column that is most important for you to pay attention to in your pending packet views. No matter if it's a move-in, renewal, midterm, doesn't matter. Any of your pending packet statuses, the required documents ready for countersignature is your column. Anytime this column changes from 0 to any other number, does not matter what that number is, that is your indication that all lease signing residents has signed the required documents and it's pending your signatures to finalize those documents. And you cannot move forward until you finalize them. So the ball is basically in your court when that number changes from 0 to any other number. Now, if you are that person, you are the person that needs to countersign leases, you are the property manager, you do need to have a certain role assigned to you by your company super user in order to be able to complete that within your custom packets. That role is called eDocSigner role. That is not something that your consultant in RealPage for document management custom packets will do for you, as that is something involving your actual employees. So that is something that you will need to reach out to your own company super user and ask that they add that role if you are not currently an eDocSigner. You will see a lot of red X's or red flags that will tell you whether or not you are an eDocSigner if you are unsure, and I'll point out those areas as we go through the countersigning process. So I can see very clearly that that column is no longer a 0, and they'll tend to stand out because you're going to have a lot of zeros and then all of a sudden there's a number. So it will stick out like a sore thumb. But I can clearly see that it's time for me to place a countersignature. And I am my company's eDocSigner, so I do have the current ability to place that countersignature. So at this point, you've done your due diligence before even generating the documents. Then you did another due diligence checking the documents before even sending them. and the resident has already signed. So there's really no need to go through the Residents at a Glance page any longer. Now we can just access the packet directly by clicking on the Move-In packet under Packet Name. When we do so, we can see right underneath, under our Notes column, it says Signature has been updated, and if we hover over it, it will tell us the last person that has signed. I know that all lease signing parties have signed because this column changed. If we had a husband and wife situation and both were indicated with the appropriate relationship and lease signing status, and only one of them had signed their packets, this column would still show 0 until the other signed. It is only once everybody in the household indicated as the lease signer has signed that this column would change. So I know it is time for my counter signature. So once I'm in my packet, I'm going to click Sign Documents again. This is going to bring me to a DocuSign Counter Signatures page. And I have the same 2 action items given to me, just like the DocuSign Household Signatures. But unlike that, the Sign Now option is most commonly what you guys will use. Your first red flag is that if you are an eDoc signer, your name would be the very first name that you see when you come to this window because you would be signed in into your own account. If your name is not the very first name that you see, then chances are you are not an eDoc signer and will need to reach out to your company super user for them to add that ability to your current role in OneSite. If your name is the very first name listed here, then you will always use the Sign Now option, which will bring DocuSign immediately into OneSite for you to quickly place that counter signature. But the send email functionality is still a really great choice in the event that you are not the eDoc signer. So let's say that you're a leasing agent and your community manager, who is the eDoc signer for your community, is working elsewhere. Maybe they're stuck listening to this 2-hour webinar with this girl that sounds like she's 8 and they don't have time to move in this person or sign these documents. Maybe they're working from home. Maybe they're working from a sister community. Doesn't matter their location, we do not want to tie your managers down to their desk or to their computers to ensure these signatures happen. We want to give you flexibility in that. So as a leasing agent, even though you are not an eDoc signer, you would still have all the capabilities to do what we've done thus far. But instead of seeing your name here, you would find your community manager or your company's super eDoc signer, and you would hit Send Email. That would send the packet to their email or their smartphone for them to quickly access no matter their location, place that counter signature, finalize those documents so that you can proceed in doing what you need to do for your move-in or renewal that's happening on site while they're away. So still a really great option. But again, if you are the eDoc signer and you're signed into your own account, just use the Sign Now option to bring DocuSign immediately into OneSite for you. You too have to agree to the electronic records and signatures disclosure at the top of the page to create a certificate to back up your signature, and you're given all the same capabilities that the resident or applicant's given. So carry through the entire document, making sure to sign everything. Again, the system will ensure that happens. And once I've signed and hit finish, it's going to take me right back into my packet. Now, because I've actively made a change to my documents while in the packet, I'm going to hit refresh contents to ensure that change takes. And once I do that, I can see I have a lot of green checkboxes suddenly appear, which is exactly what I want to see. But I can still see I have remaining red X's, which means I'm still in pending packet status. So I would still not be able to move this person in had we approached their move-in date. So what is remaining? I do see one of my red X's is actually a form, and it's for the inventory and condition form. Let's say in this example, you did not want to collect electronic signatures on this form because you wanted the resident to physically sign this form once they have agreed to the terms. Anytime a form does not have electronic signatures on it, that means that the form will only generate, but it will not know whenever it's done. So basically, for a printable inventory condition form, that red X is staying there until you told it that it's done what it's needed to do and give me my green checkbox, i.e., hey, I've printed the form, chill out. So the way that we do that is we'll go out beside the form, we'll click More, and we're going to go down to the third option, which is Make Recommended. Or sorry, second option, which is Change Status to Final. What that does is it tells the system that the form has done everything it's needed to do. It's generated so that you could print it. And at this point, you just want your green checkbox, and that's exactly what the system is going to do for you. Now, the other two red X's that I have are in regards to our placeholders. So this is telling us that as a business practice, we are requiring these pieces of information be turned in order to complete a move-in. So to be in compliance with that, we have to actually upload that piece of information to this placeholder. So one common one is proof of renter's insurance. So we're going to say that they emailed it over to us, we saved that email to our computer, and we're ready to scan it into the electronic placeholder. So we're going to find the placeholder in question, hit More, and attach document. When we do so, our window will appear. The attach mode is always defaulted and is the most commonly used mode. Attach mode is if you are using a network scanner that services multiple computers within the same office. This is the typical setup for any one-site or on-site setup or office. The scan mode is if you guys are using your very own scanner and your scanner services nothing but your computer. In that case, you can scan directly into the packet using the scan mode. Down below it, it will remind you what placeholder you are uploading to and for whom you are uploading it for. So it's telling me I am uploading the proof of income for Tom. Out beside that, I do have a finalize button, and this is the most commonly missed piece of information. So the finalize button here in your attach window is basically stating that this document either needs further verification or it's good to go as it is and should immediately be given its green checkbox just by attaching it. So if we need somebody else to review this, for example, a leasing agent normally doesn't have the ability to approve that everything looks good for proof of income or proof of renter's insurance. Normally, they just collect it from their applicant and turn it into their assistant manager or a manager to review. In this instance, we're going to say that's the situation. So I'm the leasing agent and I've collected my proof of renter's insurance from Tom, and I just need to put it inside the packet so that my managers can review it. In that instance, I am not going to click the Finalize button. That means it will add it to my packet, but it will still have a red X out beside it until my management has reviewed it. So I'm going to go ahead and review my computer to find wherever I may have saved that document. I'm going to hit Open. I can put notes in there if I need to for my management, and then I'm going to hit Attach. I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh content so my packet can update. And when I do that, I can see for the proof of renter's insurance that the document has been successfully uploaded, but I still have a red X out beside it. And that is because I did not click that finalize button. I'm basically stating that this document needs to be reviewed and have somebody else approve it. So in that case, as the leasing agent, once I uploaded it, I would just inform my manager, hey, that document's been uploaded, please go review it in the packet, and they would do so. When they access the packet, they can click View to open up whatever was uploaded, make sure it meets any criteria. If it does, they'll close out, and out beside that same placeholder, click More and change status to Final. And that gives it its green checkbox. So we have one more, and that's for the application. The application at this point in the game is really just there as proof of application. There's no further verification that needs to happen, as that's gone through the online leasing process or when you actually screen the person, and their lease paperwork has already been generated and signed. So really, all I need to do is collect it, and that's all the verification that needs to happen. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and finalize it here within the same window as my attachment. I'm going to go find wherever I may have saved that on my computer and hit attach. And when I refresh, I can see I immediately am given that green checkbox, and my document has been successfully uploaded for Tom's application. That is because I did click that finalize button when I did the actual attachment. So now I have no presence of any red X's inside this packet. So my packet has moved automatically from a pending packet status to a completed packet status. So when I close out of this packet, I can see Tom quickly disappear from my pending view and can now be tracked from my completed view. Tom is going to stay here until I've actually completed the entire process that this move-in packet is tied to. So until I move Tom in, he is going to stay right here in completed. Once I have moved him in, his packet will move again automatically from completed status down to closed status. It's going to file itself away in your electronic filing cabinet.